Hey everyone and welcome back. So, why people don't like Pauper and why people like Pauper? There are a large variety of reasons why someone may prefer a format over another one, but in case of Pauper, most times the same reason that are the reason why people like Pauper are the reasons why people don't like Pauper as well. So Pauper was considered for a long time a really slow format compared to the other ones, and that is one reason why you may not like it, but I think that as well is a reason why I prefer Pauper over other formats, so I can play longer games and have more fun because I play more of that match. But we can also consider that is not the same thing right now. I mean, Pauper has a huge power creep in the last few years, so Pauper is no longer the same. Is no longer the same real slow format. We have a lot of decks that try to predate this lower stack and win by 2-4, basically. So, Kill Theme, Multiple Fairies, I think we can consider right now Multiple Fairies and your deck is going all the times even more to the route of an aggro deck, losing its controlish approach by playing more tap out, trying to put on the battlefield more creatures and more pressure, and at the same time losing its card manipulation and counter spells. When I started on playing Pauper, for example, Multiple Fairies was the best aggro control deck with a lot of interaction and logic card advantage. Right now it's just the same thing as Monoblue Spirits is in Pioneer. Other decks that try to predate you by winning on turn 4 or turn 5 or even turn 3 in case of Kill are Rock Madness Burn, Mono Red Burn, and Pickles. Yeah, there are also Burst Bully, which is the premier Burst strategies in Pauper alongside Burst Synthesizer, but we also have a large variety of grindy, slower decks that can also have a straight aggressive approach in certain games. We are talking, of course, about the picker versions of Fairies, but there's also Burst with the Synthesizer, and of course, Affinity. So basically, Affinity is still alive, and out Goldfish doesn't show it, and the reason for that is pretty simple. Goldfish is early bad when it comes to showing you the deck list or the committee game because it's kind of bagged. So there's no affinity but here on Goldfish, but affinity in the challenges because I'm watching at the Pauper Castle of Commons spreadsheet metagame. This spreadsheet is just showing the metagame of the old Pauper challenge that got recorded. So basically, you can wait for the finish of the challenge, and after the challenge has finished or other premier event, example, Shugi's challenges, qualifiers, etc. You wait and then you watch the replays after the event has finished, because you can watch the replays after the event has finished. The replays of all the players that attended that event. For that reason, we know that Affinity, since the previous one of Galvanic Relay, is the most played deck and is still doing well since it has more than 50% of win rate. Then we of course have decks like Burst, etc. But I just wanted to notice you that certain decks that aren't shown on Magic Online are still playable. So if you want to have an idea on how the metagame is building, don't just watch Goldfish. Instead of doing that, watch the Pauper challenges results. On the MTG, on the Wizard side, you aren't watching all the lists that were played on event, but at least by watching the first 32, you're watching the top 32 when you're seeing the results of the Pauper challenge. You may have a better understanding on how the metagames evolves. Of course, watching only the top 8 is great, but I recommend you to watch all the 32 lists because it's just better. So, for that reason, you know how the metagame of Pauper is it right now, but I also think that's important to note that the metagame is split between very aggressive decks and very control-ish value decks. So we have fairies in form of demon fairies, and it's fairies that can generate a shit ton of card advantage thanks to Sprite, Ninja, Gurbalas, and Monarch. And we also have ephemeral decks, and we also have Affinity. Affinity is no longer the aggro deck that used to be, and is playing weird in Pauper. You can try to have a lot of interaction with value decks, but you don't usually have enough or the right answers in your sideboard. An example, Relic of Progenitus is probably one of the worst way to deal with your opponent card advantage, because most time when you play Relic of Progenitus, you are also a value deck in form of a mid-range deck or a control deck. So just trying to deal with your opponent graveyard often is bad, because you are also playing a strategy that is in certain ways relying to the graveyard. An example, I often face Bully with Relic of Progenitus, or maybe just Kaya Favorite with the Relic of Progenitus in their sideboard, and why are you playing that Relic is also hurting you. And just to say that we have a lot of strategies that require specific aid to deal with them, but we don't have the right kind of aid. I just wanted to say that in other formats it's important to note that you can deal perfectly with your opponent's strategy only thanks to your sideboard aid. An example, Tron in Pauper was a problem for a very long time. Right now it's not played anymore because there aren't Prism or Ponderstorm, and banning Ponderstorm was a really silly play also. But because we have decks like Killfin, Monobill Furries, Beagles that are often very bad for Tron because they can kill too fast. And Tron was a problem only thanks to the mana base. And in Pauper, the best way to interact with the mana base is by playing Punza. So, unless you are playing a land denial focused deck, you aren't really doing well with interacting with your opponent's lands. And also, the only way to interact in Pauper with the lands is land denial. So, Pauper is missing probably some kind of interaction. And as you remember, Storm has always been a problem in Pauper, and for that reason, all the Storm payoffs were banned, including Galvanic Relay. And just imagine Pauper format with better interaction, because right now it's clear as day that in Pauper we will see day by day, expansion by expansion, that the payoffs will become always better. I mean, starting from Commander Legends, the first one at least, when they printed cards like Boarding Party and Annoyed Officer, those creatures changed the metagame drastically. They allowed decks like Ponza, Gem Midrange, and Walls Cascade to be a thing in Pauper. Walls Cascade wasn't even existent in Pauper before the print of Boarding Party. And Jan was really bad because there weren't good creatures or good payoffs for Jan, so you were just splashing mono black with two other colors without having something at the same power level as Grey Merchant Fast Reveal. And Grey Merchant Fast Reveal is now really weak as a card. So after those cards, they also printed the specific answers for Swerve's deck. Recannonade, Great Weapon, and Arms of Father were printed. So now we have plenty of answer to aggressive strategies. So metagaming against creatures like Monastery's Whisper, which was printed in the last Double Master set, can be considered pretty easy, because you just need to play more blue or black Ramavals, or even white Ramavals during the Nowhere, except to deal better with a very aggressive strategies. And Killfin cannot even be considered as problematic as other beatdown strategies, because it doesn't have card advantage, so it can't really play the longer game. Compared to other decks that are relying on, yeah, we can consider those cards more problematic. For example, Basilisk's Gate, those decks try to play the longer game. And right now the only way to finish the longer game decks are just getting more card advantage compared to them, or winning before they have enough interaction. For example, Killfin, Bogles, or even Mono Blue Furies, which is right now an aggro deck, basically. And now I think we can say that we need something like more interaction in Pauper. Pauper was considered years ago a format where the payoff were pretty weak and the answers were really strong. Right now I think it's the opposite, so we have powerful threats in form of Monastery's Whisper, Monarch, the Initiative card, and I remember you that Initiative is not even on Magical Line because they didn't put it in the software. So if you want to play Initiative on Magical Line, what do you need to do? Just tag on Twitter Daybreak Games and Wizard of the Coast, and remember that we need those cards. I mean, those Initiative is clearly powerful, or yeah, maybe some people hasn't tried it yet, but I can assure you that in certain ways is better than Monarch, and Monarch now is weaker compared to other strategies when it comes to card advantage at least. So Initiative can be better. I can play as fine as well with Monarch. So those can be considered pretty strong payoff, and we don't really have, beside raw card advantage in format Tocast, Dispute and Bargain, or Dispute Analysis, or Ephemerate. Other way to interact well with the Monarch or with Initiative, yeah, those are a lot of cards, of course, so we can say that Monarch is can consider no longer a problem. It was a problem in the first few years, but it wasn't answered then, and then is still a Pauper staple, and of course pretty annoying to play against it, but we can consider that that kind of non-interactive approach is the most similar thing to the other format, to Planeswalker at least. So yeah, we have Planeswalkers in Pauper, but they are very different compared to modern or legacy or pioneer Planeswalkers. And for that reason, I think that we are going uh, towards to a Pauper format, which is very different to Pauper who was years ago, and Pauper right now it will always become more similar to formats like Modern or Pioneer. And the thing that I don't like about the other formats and which also are the thing that are similar to Pauper, to the other formats right now, is the non-interactive payoffs, basically. So Monastery's Whisper, because it's very fast, can be considered a thing that is similar to other formats, but I think that is still fine. But having Monarch and so basically the Pauper Planeswalker is the aspect of Pauper that I don't like at all. But you can consider that is a way to hasten the game, so it can be considered a positive thing for Pauper, because by having faster games we can play more games, and we can also you can also let non-Pauper players enjoy the format. But as I already said, liking a format is just a matter of what you prefer over what you don't prefer. And for that reason, what I wanted to say that I think will be pretty good to have a larger variety of answers even at common, because I want to have more answers to Storm's strategies, or to deal with Basilisk Gate, even non-land denial answers when it comes to land would be pretty cool. And having in Pauper a large variety of answers will eventually open to have untapped land, because I think Pauper will be better with untapped dual lands. Why? Because I think that will be better to have bicolor or tricolor aggressive decks that aren't Affinity or Fairies or Madness Burn or Burials. So all of those decks plays tapped lands, but they are also cheating in certain ways with how Magic works. Burials by relying, or Killing by relying on spells that add a great amount of power on the creature, Burn on dealing direct damage on your opponent. Fairies can generate a lot of card advantage, also so can switch from control to aggro, depending on the matchup or the game situation. And they can also play Monarch, which is a free card advantage spell, and they can also play cards like Snuff Out or Scred or Power Blast, which in certain ways are better removal spells or better counter spells compared to the other decks. So right now we have blue decks that are still the best decks in the format. We have decks that in certain ways cheat on all the beatdowns works, and we have mid-range decks that probably beside Boros Bully, but Boros Bully nowadays is more aggressive than controlling, so maybe you can consider it an aggro deck instead of a mid-range deck. So aggro instead of control, or instead of mid-range, whatever. And yeah, it would be very cool to have untapped land, because probably a negative aspect of Pauper is having the tapped mana base, because tapped mana base is preventing a lot of strategies from my point of view. So which untapped lands I think would be very cool to have? I think the Pain lands, Shivan Rift, Carplusan Forest, etc. If you are dealing yourself damage, basic is a really cost to the game. You are favoring your opponent's aggressive strategies, and also for that reason you are giving a huge power to red based strategies, but you also have a huge tempo advantage by having untapped lands. I think only one cycle of dual untapped lands would eventually not be enough, so I think that we need at least 2 cycles of untapped dual lands for Pauper, and maybe we will get those 5 or more years, but by that time I'm not even sure if Magic will be still a thing. And beside having more untapped lands, I think that will be, of course, better to have more answers. And I'm thinking both of better answers compared to the current ones. So Fatal Push with Cast Down, Path to Exile, or Blow to Plowshares over Journey to Nowhere. I think better answers maybe will be impact greatly the format, and of course I'm also thinking about having better answers compared to Dust when it comes to dealing with artifact lands. So not Blood Moon, of course, but maybe some tax effects, maybe in form of creatures, so your opponent can't play artifacts, can land artifacts on the battlefield without tapping 1 for every artifact you want to play. It's just an idea. So I think Pauper will be better if by having more interaction, by having more aggressive decks, and not glass cannon decks like Killfin or Boggles or Burn. Yeah, I consider Burn as a glass cannon deck most times because you can just get some life to not die from their gameplay. At least more Red Burn was used to be like that. Rakdos Burn is way better compared to Mother Red Burn when it comes to surviving throughout Weather the Storm or 2. Well, yeah, I said a lot of things in this video. I just wanted to show you some of my ideas. I may be wrong, or I may be not, but I see a lot of games where when I play a deck, I can interact well with my opponent because or I have untapped, or I have tapped lands, or I don't have answers that aren't efficient enough, but certain answers can be played only in very specific decks like Dimmer Forest, example. Snuff Out, I don't want to play Snuff Out in enough deck, which isn't Furious, an example. Well, I think we should wait for the next few Premier expansion like Modern Horizon or Devil Masters to wait how the format will evolve, and eventually we can just say our conclusions about that. For now, we will see you. I'll see you in the next video next week. Bye.